is part of the Interim Steering Committee in the Africa-Europe CSO Engagement Platform. And we are happy to welcome you into this important meeting or workshop. Thank you for honoring our invitation. We are glad that you made it. And the workshop is important because it is happening ahead of the 7th Africa Union and European Union Summit, or the AU-EU Summit, which will be happening in Angola in November. And so it is important that you are here because it means that the role of CSOs is important in strengthening the partnership that has been evolving of the AU-EU partnership. And it has been evolving in the midst of many challenges and opportunities from peace and security, from migration, from issues of digital transformation, to issues of climate change. And so it therefore means that it is important that CSOs have a say, or they contribute in shaping this partnership so that it is not just strategic, but it is also people-centered. And so today, the importance of us having this workshop is to ensure that we have a common understanding of the agenda of the Africa or the AU-EU Summit, and that we have a say. And we are very intentional. We want to ensure that what is happening in your various areas of work, whether it is in your country levels or in your sub-regional level, we want to ensure that the issues that you work on, the voices of the communities that you work with, in all their diversities, that they are heard in this space, and that you also get an opportunity to contribute and to bring those voices in shaping the recommendations that we will be putting together. And so I want to welcome you all. We have fantastic facilitators who will be helping us to dive deep into the various components that we have prepared today. And we invite you to not just listen, but and to reflect, but also to challenge and to share and to build bridges in this partnership, in this workshop. So feel very much welcome and have an open mind and open heart to keep on sharing the information that you have. Back to you, Ella.
Thank you very much. As you see, our wonderful international sign language interpreter, Ferdinand, also spotlighted. Ferdinand, please interpret for me that those who require the interpretation or in international sign language, make yourselves known to you, maybe via a message in the chat, so that you can also pin them on your screen. And we have this meeting accessible to everyone. And now to start, just to know who's in the room, we see names and numbers popping on our participant list. I'll invite you to join a little poll that we will do with the Mentimeter. That will be our tool through the workshop as well. So you can see on the shared screen a QR code. You can also go to menti.com and use the code visible. There is a link in the chat. You can do it on your computer. You can do it with your mobile phone. We invite you to join this little online space and get us some information, and we will be using it throughout the workshop. So this is a little warm-up. And to start, please tell us, where is it that your feet are touching the ground today? Not necessarily where are you from, because that's very often a complicated question in the interconnected world that we have. But where are we connecting from today? We also have some people telling us about their state of mind, which is brilliant. There is somebody coming in determined, and we need that kind of attitude. I love the interpretation. Good, I see we have representation on both continents, which is exactly what we need to have the right level of exchange. And I'm happy to see the Mentimeter seems not to be having any trouble. if there is any trouble with Mentimeter, let us know in the chats, and my colleague Lara or myself will try and help you through it. But looks like we are getting there. Lovely. I'll keep collecting that, but stop the share now because there is more important information to share. Jaimie, if you could pull up the slide with our wonderful keynote speaker, because this is where we're heading off to. We will start this meeting with a keynote speech and an address by Thomas Kingsley Justice Lebbie, who is connecting in, I think, from Sierra Leone, although you have to confirm where are you calling in from today. Your head of programs at the Welfare Society for Disabled in Sierra Leone, president of the Mano River Youth Network, and thank you so much for accepting to speak to us and inspire us for this work that is starting today, but we will continue in the weeks to come towards the summit. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Hella, and thank you so much for having me here today, and thank you for having to organize this workshop so that grassroots voices and voices across the world can be, can make their input, and the leaders in Europe and Africa can really listen to them. Thank you so much for organizing this. I'll be bringing practical experiences and really contextual approaches to really to open as my keynote address. It will be more of really my personal experiences in Sahel and the South region. I bring you greetings from Sahel, my beautiful country, very beautiful. A small country in West Africa. On the surface, it is a place of warmth, resilience, and community spirit. But as I grew older, I realized that our story as a people is also marked by untold truth about power imbalances, truth about supremacy, and truth about how the destiny of our land was often too shaped by not by us, but by others.
Thomas, excuse me for disturbing you. It's Ella again. Will you manage to get your video on? We would love to see you as well, or will we only have sound from you?
Okay.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. My great grandfather lived through colonial rule, a time when Europe saw Africa not as a partner, but as a possession. I'll be speaking a lot about my great grandfather as I learned a lot of lessons, and this is what I'll be bringing to us here today. That legacy is not just written in history books. It has been carried forward into trade agreement, hate structures, and political arrangement that still even today favor the powerful over the powerless. As a child, I did not have the language to describe these dynamics, but I could feel them. I felt them in the inequalities around me, in the limited opportunities for my peers, in the way decisions about our lives were often made far away from us. Those experiences shaped me deeply, and they taught me, and they brought me here today to speak for a different kind of AU-EU partnership. To understand the moment we are in, we must first look at how this partnership between the AU and the EU has progressed. In the year 2000, the first African, AU-EU summit was held in Cairo, marking the start of structured dialogue between the two continents. 7 years later, in 2007, the Joint Africa-EU strategy was launched in Lisbon. Its ambition was bold to move beyond traditional donor-recipient model and instead create a relationship of equals, grounded in shared interest and mutual accountability. At the 2022 summit, leaders also reaffirmed a renewed partnership for solidarity, security, and peace and sustainable economic development, with commitment around climate action, health, education, and digital transformation. Yes, it is true that on paper, the AU-EU partnership is one of the most comprehensive continental-to-continental frameworks in the world. But in practice, it continues to wrestle with old imbalances. Trade figures show this clearly. In 2023, the EU-African trade totaled 467 billion pounds, with Africa exporting 367 billion pounds worth of goods, mostly raw materials, while the EU exported higher value machinery, equipment, and chemicals. West Africa, my beautiful context, with the EU alone has grown by 73% since 2016, reaching 19 billion pounds in 2024. Yet Africa remains locked in a circle of exporting raw commodities while importing finished products, leaving most of our value with Europe. Africa and Europe are not strangers, and that is the truth. That is why we are here. We are bound by a long, complex history, one that includes memories of exploitation, but also opportunities for partnership, partnership today in trade, education, security, and cultural exchange. Geography ties us across the Mediterranean. Our economies are interlinked through traditional investment. Our societies are shaped by migration, by shared challenges, and by cultural influences flowing in both directions. And yet, as a young person speaking to you today, I have seen firsthand how the narrative about youth is shifting. As part of the Takura Youth Panel, a project I co-implemented, and as the current executive president of the Mano River Youth Network, I was on a team of young people tasked with making decisions about where funding should be provided, not just to benefit youth, but to empower them as decision makers. In my role as head of programs for the Welfare Society for the Disabled, an NGO working with and for persons with disabilities in Sierra Leone, we design and lead interventions that promote the leadership of marginalized groups and young people in shaping community and national development process. When I think of young entrepreneurs I worked with in Sierra Leone, from solar energy innovators in Makeni to women, young women in Potloko, the northwest of Sierra Leone, who are doing Gayata Eda in clothing, these experiences show how that youth are not merely beneficiaries. We are innovators, leaders, and active participants in shaping Africa's hero future. That is why we are here today. The AU-EU relationship is not just a diplomatic arrangement. It matters because together we represent more than 1.8 billion people, the youngest and most dynamic population in the world. It matters because the EU is Africa's largest trading partner, and Africa is Europe's closest neighbor and most strategic ally. But this partnership will only matter if it truly reflects equity, quality, and not just the language of equality, but the practice of it. Africa is not a junior partner. Europe is not a senior partner. Africa is not a junior partner. We are equals, and we must be seen as that. The real question before us is, will the AU-EU partnership continue the old pattern of imbalance and top-down decision-making? Or will it embrace a new model rooted in localization, respect, co-creation, and meaningful youth participation? That choice will determine whether this partnership becomes another page in history, and it will determine what will be the outcome of this workshop today, either a blueprint or a new page for partnership. Let me speak plainly about some of the challenges that affect partnership like the EU-AU, especially as they play out in my beautiful country, Sierra Leone. Agreement like the economic partnership agreement between the EU and the African states were meant to encourage development, yet in practice, they often protect one side. In Sierra Leone, my beautiful country, farmers who grow cocoa, rice, and palm oil work tirelessly to supply local and international markets, but most of the value is captured by foreign companies that process, package, and export the final product. This means that despite the hard work of local producers, the benefit often bypass the communities that produce the goods, limiting job creation and economic growth at home. Localization gaps are also visible in Sierra Leone development landscape. Many aid programs, though well-intentioned, are designed abroad and brought into the country as ready-made solutions. While this program provides temporary relief, they rarely build sustainable capacity for local systems to drive independently. Let's take, for instance, an international organization will come to a country like Sierra Leone to directly implement programs in communities, competing with local and indigenous organizations. Then I ask myself, what is then the essence of the partnership when local organizations have no role to play? Even today, similar patterns exist in areas like education, disability inclusion, climate adaptation projects, where initiatives often lack meaningful engagement with local communities and stakeholders who best understand the context. Decolonization in practice is another ongoing challenge. In Sierra Leone, development finances still often comes with conditions that limit government's autonomy, keeping the country dependent on external support. Research and technical studies about the country are frequently conducted by foreign institutions, with limited recognition for local experts. I want us to be reminded of this, that true and meaningful inclusion and partnership would mean empowering local institutions, researchers, and entrepreneurs to lead solutions that reflect every country's priority. Intergenerational divides are evident in Sierra Leone decision-making space. I was speaking 3 months ago in a national conference, and I said this, that the biggest divides we have right now is, it cannot be religious, it cannot be political, but it's generational divide. When one generation sees the other generation as a different perspective. Our country, like most of the African country and European countries, is home to a young population with a median age of just under 20. Yet boards, ministries, and international forums are largely dominated by older generations. Then I ask myself, how can the largest population be underrepresented? Young people are often told we are the future, but the present contributions, whether in technology, entrepreneurship, social innovation, or advocacy, are undervalued. Let me mention a few of my experiences with this approach in Sierra Leone. From solar energy startups that I support in Makeni, the North, to women-led Gayata dying I support in Port Loko, youth are driving change, yet they remain underrepresented at the tables where decisions are made. Ignoring these imbalances is creating solutions that do not reflect the realities of Sierra Leone or other countries and the potential of its young population. I know if I ask in the room now, this reflects similar challenges across the EU countries. What's the partnership without us, the young people, who are drivers of local development? Let me not overemphasize. I assume the most heated question now in the room will be, what can we do? And that is why we are here. First, localization, respect, and equality must guide the EU partnership. Across Sierra Leone, young entrepreneurs are creating practical homegrown solutions that address local challenges, from solar-powered energy kit to digital tools, enhancing financial inclusion in Sierra Leone. These solutions are contextually informed and sustainable, unlike imported programs that often fail to reflect local realities. In my work with Wizofort, where I serve as head of programs, we apply this principle through most of our programs, like the current European Union grant we are implementing and the German fund. We provide direct funding, mentorship, and technical support to young people, including youth with disability. Rather than relying on international NGOs to implement projects, these young people design, implement, and report on their own initiatives, building skills, confidence, and local ownership. Respectful collaboration also requires co-creation of policies. This is what we must emphasize at the summit, co-creation of policy. Programs like the AU Youth Voices Lab show how youth, when trusted to make decisions, can shift from passive beneficiaries to active co-creators of development, including review proposals, allocating funds, and defining local priorities. For the AU-EU partnership to be meaningful, this principle of equality must move from rhetoric to practice. Second, reducing supremacy and embracing clear and unapologetic decolonization are essential. Traditional aid often position Europe as provider and Africa as recipient. Genuine co-investment requires Africa to be recognized as an equal partner with real stakes. Decolonization must also reshape trade agreements, financing and intellectual property rules so African producers, innovators, and scholars retain fair value and recognition. In practice, this means supporting programs like Sierra Leonean programs and other African programs like Solar Startup, improving rural electrification, youth-led tech ops, promoting financial inclusion, enabling local solutions to scale, rather than to be sidelined by an external priority. Youth and intergenerational collaboration are engines for transformation, and this is what I want to speak on lastly. Young people are active innovators and job creators, not passive recipients of aid, and they must not be seen as that. Programs like the AU-EU Voices Lab, which we are implementing now, are promising, but they must evolve into a long-term mechanism that directly influences policy, funding, and implementation. They must become a mechanism within the AU and EU systems rather than just a project. We must go beyond the project and be deliberate about this. In Sierra Leone, initiatives like the Takura panel I've just mentioned prove that empowered youth drive sustainable impact, economic growth, and social creativity. Combining the energy and creativity of youth with the experience of older leaders through mentorship and shared decisions making ensures partnerships are adaptive, resilient, and reflective of the AU-EU demographic realities. Ignoring youth perspective risks building outdated programs. Embracing them ensures continuity, inclusivity, and transformative impact for the generations to come. I grew up in Sierra Leone, in a small community where life was simple but full of lessons. My great-grandfather would tell me stories of our land of resilience, of survival, and of a people who endured colonization. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Exploitation, and yet never lost their dignity. As a child, I watched neighbors struggle with challenges that seem beyond their control. Farmers who toil endlessly, only to see most of their cocoa value captured far away in Europe. Or local innovators who had brilliant ideas, but lacked the funding or trust to make them real. I realized earlier on that story of Africa is not one of hardship, it is one of creativity, strength, and untapped potential. If we continue with top-down decisions, then this partnership like those cocoa farmers' dreams or the youth innovators' ideas will remain constrained. It will be like giving someone a seed, but never letting them to water. Let me leave you with imaginations. And this is what I want us to drive further as a step forward towards this conversation we are having today. Even amidst all of this, but let's imagine a different path for the AU-EU partnership. Imagine an AU-EU partnership where a young woman in Sierra Leone designs a tie-dye enterprise, receives direct funding, and reaches international market without an external NGO deciding for her. Imagine a young man in Gambia building solar-powered kit for his village, fully supported, fully trusted, fully credited. Imagine an AU and EU collaboration that listens first, invests locally, values knowledge across, and co-create solutions side by side with everyone being part of the process, including young people, women, and persons with disabilities. That is not just a dream, that is a choice, a practice of respect, localization, and unapologetic decolonization. Finally, and most importantly, imagine the magic that happens when generations work together. Just imagine. Elders sharing wisdom, youth bringing energy and innovation, all solving problems with creativity and knowledge. That is how we redefine not just the AU-EU relationship, but what global leadership can look like: inclusive, equitable, and rooted in reality and not rhetoric. The next chapter is ours to write, and it begins by trusting the people who live by the story. Let's start doing it through this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I wish there was a sound feature here to get the applause coming to you that we hear popping as little icons. We can do the sign that we're learning from the International Sign Language in bit of applause. Thanks so much for inspiring us. I noted down, of course, some quotes from what you said, mentioning that there is no senior partner Europe and junior partner Africa, but we are equals in this process. And we have to work as such. And if we do, it's not a dream, but it's a choice to be in those future that you invited us to imagine. And I think it's a very important attitude that we will bring into the workshop now. And because I forgot to do it before your speech, as I was so excited, I wanted to invite everyone to have a look at what we will be doing today. So our agenda. So I see Jaimie already popping up the agenda of this workshop. We've just had our keynote address from Thomas. Now we're gonna have a background and policy framework introduction by Jaimie Just from CONCORD. And after this, we will spend a bit more than an hour discussing in smaller groups and getting your input into what we can do and what we see as gaps and what we see as possibilities for us as civil society to bring to the table. So it is essential that you stay with us till the end, because it is there where the magic happens in this workshop. And when we move from this imagination space to a choice that we're making of bringing our contribution to the table. So Jaimie, please give us this policy framework and policy background. And I invite everyone to keep their finger on the translation button, because Jaimie has this fantastic ability of switching between the two languages just to mix it up for us. Jaimie, they are yours.
Thank you so much, Ela, and thank you, Thomas, for your address. We're so lucky to have you with us today. And I found myself shaking my head in agreement, and just everything you shared is aligned basically with the principles and values of this platform that we've been working on together, European and African civil society and youth organizations. So I will take some time, a few minutes, well, 15, 20 minutes, to give a bit of information on the background of the platform. So the Africa-Europe Civil Society Engagement Platform, or CSEP, the road that we've traveled together from 2022, when there was the AU-EU Summit in Brussels, to the upcoming summit this November in Angola, the aims and structure of our platform, and an overview of the EU-AU policy framework, the partnership, and some of the key issues, which Thomas already did a fabulous job of raising up. So the platform, as we call it, was officially established last year in October, almost 1 year to the day. It was on the 9th of October, 2024. And this was a shifting point. You probably received emails from our group or heard about a CSEM, so a civil society engagement mechanism in the AU-EU partnership. And that this will all become a bit more clear in a moment, but basically, without being able to establish a formal and institutionally recognized mechanism, we went ahead and started up our autonomous platform so that we could get to work and bring together the common voices, so that we could have this inclusive, broad-based advocacy and have unified, bottom-up civil society influencing the program and policies of the partnership. So the organizational structure of the platform is, of course, its member organizations, a coordinating committee, the role of which is being played right now by an interim steering committee, and the thematic working groups, of which there are 6 now today. Let me switch to, so here you have a visual of the structure, how we envision it. So there's this, our platform, and the idea is that, as you see up top, African civil society organizations, European civil society organizations, youth and diaspora from both continents bring together their interests and priorities within this platform. And then we dialogue with the partnership, with the institutions. So we are in regular contact with the EU, with the AU, as well as with member states who are part of each of the unions. So here, you have an overview, ou peut-être je vais passer en français. Donc, activez les boutons d'interprétation. Activate your interpretation button. Je vais présenter l'historique de notre chemin depuis le sommet en 2022. Donc, il y avait un sommet à Bruxelles, le 6e sommet Union Afrique et Union européenne, qui a eu lieu en février 2022. Et là, il y avait une semaine, Afrique-Europe, il y avait un forum des organisations de la société civile, une déclaration commune et il y avait des webinaires préparatoires qui ont été organisés en amont du sommet. Il y avait aussi, si je ne me trompe pas, et Michael, je vais demander que vous écrivez dans le chat peut-être, il y avait un People Summit qui a été organisé aussi à ce moment-là. Ensuite, en 2023, et suite à un engagement de la société civile qui a laissé un peu à désirer, on va dire, en 2022, il y avait une motivation, un momentum pour proposer et mettre en place une structure permanente pour justement faciliter l'engagement de la société civile et la jeunesse au sein du partenariat. Et là, un groupe de volontaires et bénévoles prenaient leur temps, donnaient leur temps, je voulais dire, pour écrire une proposition d'un mécanisme pour l'engagement. Alors, ça a été encouragé aussi par le commissaire de l'Union européenne, Ute Urpelainen, à l'époque. Et il y avait des réunions avec elle. Et en fait, nous avons rédigé ensemble un groupe d'environ 30-40 personnes en document. Ensuite, nous avons entamé des discussions avec des partenaires africains, européens, des institutions. Et ça continue jusqu'à aujourd'hui, mais vu que ça, on n'arrivait pas à avoir l'approbation, le soutien officiel des institutions, nous avons lancé donc la plateforme autonome, donc le CSEP. Et là, déjà en 2022, nous avons adopté un document bref pour mettre en relief les enjeux principaux que nous voyons dans le partenariat. Ensuite, nous avons la plateforme et en 2025, nous continuons à élargir la plateforme et le consolider. Nous avons aussi dans le comité directeur intérimaire la mission de mettre en place une structure de gouvernance plus stable, plus long terme. Nous avons aussi lancé un site web cette année pour faciliter le partage des informations et avoir une meilleure visibilité de notre travail. Alors, je vais faire ce diapo en français, puis je repasse en anglais. Alors, les objectifs de notre plateforme sont pour faciliter des groupes de travail thématiques, et ces groupes thématiques servent à consolider des positions communes politiques et générer des données et des exemples concrets à communiquer aux partenaires. Nous organisons des sessions thématiques pour partager, dialoguer et aussi faire des connexions entre les acteurs multiples dans la société civile, la jeunesse, diaspora et aussi des générations différentes. C'est aussi pour co-créer des sessions et des activités préparées par les partenaires. Par exemple, il y aura cette année, en novembre, un forum pour la société civile et la jeunesse en Angola. Et là, nous essayons de contribuer et former, à déterminer le format et comment va se dérouler ces sessions. Ensuite, nos valeurs et principes sont pas très nombreux, mais ils sont très importants. D'abord, c'est le partage d'informations, parce que nous devons avoir les bonnes informations à jour pour pouvoir interagir et contribuer à ce partenariat, et aussi veiller à ce que les engagements sont respectés et mis en œuvre. L'inclusion et la diversité, c'est important aussi, la balance, la représentation et égalité entre les femmes et les hommes et les régions géographiques différentes. La transparence, la voix pour les personnes les plus touchées par les politiques et programmes du partenariat, et aussi les voix de ceux et celles qui sont plus exposés ou qui sont au risque de marginalisation. Encore, l'accessibilité et le renforcement des capacités. Alors, pour rappeler notre groupe de travail thématique, now I go back into English perhaps, because you maybe get tired of my funny French with the English accent. We have our thematic working groups and the interim steering committee. The 6 groups are listed here, going from climate and biodiversity, economic development, food systems, human rights, gender, migration, youth, all the while not saying that those topics should only be addressed in those thematic working groups. There's a cross-pollination, and the topics should also be informing each other and not operating in silos. And we have the interim steering committee, which is composed of 20 members with a 1-year mandate to, as I mentioned, consolidate and expand the platform and ensure its long-term sustainability. So we have 10 individuals from African organizations and 10 individuals from European organizations. And CONCORD is very lucky to be part of this group. In terms of the AU-EU partnership, we don't want to take all the time going over all the history. So I noticed Thomas mentioned the agreement from Cairo. So I won't go back that far, but in the past, there was the Joint Africa-EU Strategy, or JACE, the Cotonou Agreement, and now what we're working with today, the policy framework operating in the background, is the Joint Vision 2030, which was adopted by the partners at the summit in 2022. And this is kind of a renewed effort at the partnership for security, peace, economic development, prosperity. And they also mention involving civil society, but we see how this is rolled out. Also, sorry, my computer is bugging. There's also the Samoa Agreement, which was introduced in 2023 and it's been facing some challenges, but this is the overarching framework for the EU's relations with African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries. We also have the economic partnership agreements that Thomas mentioned. These are rolled out by the European Union, the AU-EU Human Rights Dialogue, also the African Union Agenda 2063, which is Africa's development blueprint for inclusive and sustainable socioeconomic development, and the Maputo Protocol, I think are important to note, which is the protocol on the African Charter of Human Rights, Human and People's Rights, and the rights of women in Africa. Finally, I included a mention of the Global Gateway Investment Package because of the prominence that the Global Gateway Initiative is taking in the European Union's approach to its partnerships. So while we agree that it's important to have equal partnerships based on mutual respect and to move past a dynamic of donor-recipient, this very transactional approach of Global Gateway doesn't come out without its issues. Let me put it like that for now. So there are some issues that we can see are impacting the partnership, not only in the implementation of the framework, the Joint Vision 2030, but also just in terms of how the unions each encounter each other and the member states and some of the dynamics that are at play underneath the surface. So conflict, crisis, and fragility are defining very much the period we're in right now, whether that's Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Gaza, the situation in Gaza, the DRC, Sudan, or the Sahel. We are in a moment that's quite turbulent. And in this moment, the EU is also shifting its approach in international partnerships. There's also the ever-present issue of debt and the legacy of colonialism, the risk of continued extractivism and new colonialism, where we should be moving into, what did Thomas call it, as the unapologetic decolonialization. We also see rising autocracy in Europe and elsewhere, cuts of official development assistance, and of course, legitimate grievances about double standards that the European Union and European countries have had facing their partners in Africa. I'd also like to mention the increasing restrictions on civic space, something that is well known in many parts of the world and is increasingly becoming a risk and a threat here in Europe and for our organizations. So what is our platform doing in the face of all this? We're getting together, we're exchanging. As I mentioned, we had a brief statement last year to outline what we thought were the main issues of the partnership and how the structures and the relationship between the continents needed to be reshaped. And of course, putting the voices of those most affected by the decisions at the heart of it. So in this first document, we called for respect of human rights, rule of law, also emphasizing the need that youth, women, and persons with disabilities be systematically included, adequate social protection and public services. We addressed food systems, rural transformation, the need for engaging grassroots organizations, also tackling human development through health and education, and expanding the fiscal space of African countries through debt relief. This year, in preparation for the ministerial meeting that happened in Brussels in May, we did put together a joint statement, a bit longer than the statement we did last year. And here we focused on the meaningful engagement of civil society and youth in the partnership, economic development, fair, just, and also targeting local priorities, food systems, peace and security, youth, migration, health, and climate. So I would leave it there, and I'm not sure if we have time to take any questions. Be very happy to answer if anything was unclear. And we can share the links to the documents in the chat. See, there's been some activity in the chat already. And just so you know, we'll also be sharing the PowerPoint presentation after the meeting today. For those who are not here or those who would like to consult the finer details. Ayla, should we move to discussion or any Q&A? I don't see any.
So far, no questions, but this is a moment. There are two ways of asking a question. You can write it down in chat in English or in French. We'll be happy to take it. You can also raise your virtual hand, as Lorraine is doing already, and we'll be happy to give you the voice. So yes, please, Lorraine, come in.
Thank you very much for your question. My name is Lorraine Chiponda, and I work on phase out of fossil fuels. So my interest would be in the different spaces that we could possibly influence that can allow us to push our message, and also just to find out about broader influencing of the EU-AU, because I remember from last year, even I would say this year, there are a bit of challenges in terms of civil society participation, and just because we don't want to be outside the formal spaces, we want to be able to participate within the formal spaces and influence within the formal spaces, not just outside. So just to understand the diplomatic spaces that are available to civil society, particularly working on phase out of fossil fuels, because that would be an interest to me, the economic alternatives, also green industrialization, because I mean, that cannot happen without first building the alternatives for Africa. So what are the different programs, spaces that we can actually influence? They will be heard. Thank you.
Ayla, shall I respond to Lorraine directly and then we'll hear from Imali?
Yes, let's do that so that we have
Okay.
fresh.
excellent question, Lorraine, and thank you so much. I'm not sure if you mentioned where you're joining from and where you're working on this phase out of fossil fuels, but I can give a couple of tips. So we're actually trying to see that our initiative become not just an outsider space, and we do have access. For example, we'll have some of our organizations present in the formal official EU-AU CSO Youth Forum in November. And the idea there is that the messages we gather here in this space with all of you, we bring them there as joint messages. We don't come and I say, I'm Jaimie, I have these messages from CONCORD and this from the CSEP. I come, I bring the CSEP messages. And the aim is that our other organizations who will be in that space, because of the methodology that the partners chose, we come, and we didn't manage to open it up this time. We made really a lot of efforts to convince them to actually delegate to us the possibility to find people from amongst the network, such as yourself, but we're not there yet. So just to answer that question, we can bring these into the inside space, but that's not enough. For broader influencing of the partnership, I would really encourage you in the country where you're working, or the countries where you're working, to get in touch with the EU delegations, because they have programs. They also are in charge of rolling out these new global gateway strategies and responding to new proposals for projects. And they're not quite there yet on engaging civil society. They have civil society roadmaps, and you can find these online, and it sets out the general priorities that they want to work on with civil society. And I think the phasing out of fossil fuels could certainly be one of those. So I'm happy also to exchange in bilateral to give some ideas on that, but I would say really be in touch with your EU delegation in the countries where you're working and where your partners are working. That's going to be your first entry point. You want them to know that you're there. The other would be, and I'm sure this is something you've already done, but it bears repeating, is try as much as you can to contact the ECOSOC of the African Union, or the CIDO, the Citizens Initiatives and Diaspora Organization, because those are the entry points on the African Union side for civil society engagement in the most institutional sense. So not to say that it's easy, but it's good to be known, and then connect also with people who are part of that General Assembly to see if you can also get your messages carried with them into those spaces if you don't manage to get there. I see we lost, is it Imani who had her hand?
Yeah, we had Imani hand up, but we lost her apparently. We have Musa and Grace. I would take those two questions and then have you give a consolidated answer in the interest of our time together. Musa, go ahead.
Sorry, I had a question.
Okay. Oh yes, Imali is still there.
J'avais
All
une
right.
question et deux avis à donner, si vous me le permettez. Merci beaucoup. Donc, on nous parle beaucoup de partenariats, mais en général, les partenariats en Afrique sont perçus comme les APE. Et comme Madame vient de le dire, nous avons d'autres formes de partenariats, souvent qu'on oublie. Tout simplement aussi, les modes les plus utilisés aujourd'hui sont le modèle gagnant-gagnant. Donc, ce que je voulais dire, existe-t-il des outils ou des mécanismes pour vérifier ce partenariat? Et j'ai deux avis. Nous nous retrouvons, à mon avis, dans un dilemme, à savoir comment peser sur la balance d'une manière effective en tant que société civile devant les deux forces, à savoir l'Union européenne et l'Union africaine en négociation avec des intérêts qui ne prennent pas en compte souvent les communautés. Et pour finir, je dirais que dans les ateliers précédents que nous avons eu à participer, nous avions parlé de l'héritage des connaissances, du matériel, du foncier et des fonds. Et je pense que c'est un point très important à mettre en avant. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Musa. Okay, Imali, you were in the queue and you're back. Imali, and then I'll take Grace.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. First and foremost, thank you for talking about the policies. I just wanted to seek clarification regarding the JIS and the Cotonou agreements, because in my understanding, it's usually government parties that are in these discussions. They are normally done between countries, and usually CSOs and alliances like CONCORD are left out. What I wanted to inquire is what would be the entry point where young people can meaningfully engage, and also whether you do have a European Week for Action for Girls, where girls within young girls in Africa can engage in these discussions, and also CSOs can now talk about the critical issues, some which Lorraine talked about, but others on the impact of climate change on health, and critical issues like gender-based violence and femicide. Thank you so much. Oh,
Thank you, Imali. And finally, Grace.
I am from Kenya.
Oh, thanks, Imali. Yes, thank you for the clarification. Grace, go ahead, and then we'll have Jaimie respond, and we'll move on to the workshop bit where you all will be invited to participate.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And Ella, thank you for giving me this opportunity to just share a few thoughts and maybe a question at the end. And I would like to just say that I think some of us who are here on this call are part of an Africa CSO group, and I think we were very grateful to hear that there's such a platform to coordinate around. And I think just to say that we've been preparing some messaging with different CSOs around this engagement. And I think that it's really a timely opportunity for us to see how we can engage with organizations like you. So I would like to probably ask, and following also following up on what Lauren has asked, because I think we are looking at how we can really collaborate with European organizations to strengthen the messaging. So I'm just trying to see how we can follow up with this engagement to see that we are strengthening the messaging and also connecting between the African and the EU organizations here, because I think we already have some of our key messages highlighted, I think, in a document. So I think I'll follow with that question in terms of how are we seeing taking this partnership or collaboration forward to strengthen our engagement as we go forward, looking forward to the meeting in November, if I'm not wrong. Secondly, I think we've also been really trying to look at avenues and opportunities to reach out to our African Union contacts as well as EU contacts. It has not been easy because I think everyone has been trying using their different contacts, but we are really still trying to strengthen that as well. And I feel like it would be very useful for us if we can maybe use this opportunity to see if there are colleagues from your end who can help us reach out to the EU contacts. And I'm grateful that the former speaker has mentioned about ECOSOC, so that I think that's an opportunity for us. And so also just really highlighting opportunities for us to engage the EU contacts in Africa would be very useful. And I think that's one of the ways for us to collaborate. So I think I'm kind of also answering the question that I asked. So, but just putting that out there as well. And I think the other thing as well is that we had learned that there's going to be a follow-up meeting. And I think being organized by yourselves to engage the policymakers, if you could shed a bit more light on this so that I think it could be useful for us to be able to prepare and see what kind of messages do we want to put out, if at all we're holding these meetings, and what exactly are we expecting for that particular meeting. I think this is supposed to be the third and final meeting, so if you could just shed a bit more light on that, and I think that would be quite useful. Thank you very much. Grace Rono from Kenya.
Thank you, Grace. So I'm going to try and go super quick because I see the time. I'll work my way backwards, but you have seen the series of webinars that we're proposing. So yes, this is not a one-off, and this is, what we're doing to create a space to have voices, the ones that maybe cannot get through the gatekeeping of ECOSOC or the CEDAW. We don't have a requirement that you be accredited. Yeah, anybody can come here and share their experiences. In terms of AU contacts, if it's not going well through the African Union itself, there's also the members of parliament in the different countries. And I know that there's a delegation of parliamentarians to the EU and Africa delegation. So they meet with members of the European Parliament, different members of parliament in African Union states. Unmuted. Okay. So that could be another way to get entry points. I see Moussa. J'apprécie beaucoup votre commentaire, votre contribution. J'ai pas bien entendu ce que vous avez dit sur comment les partenariats sont perçus, mais je vous disais que c'est pas, même si c'est formulé comme gagnant-gagnant, c'est pas bien le cas en réalité. Est-ce que j'ai bien compris?
Oui, je voulais tout simplement dire que, parce que nous avons le même souci, c'est-à-dire on parle de partenariat gagnant-gagnant. Existe-t-il des outils ou des mécanismes ou des procédures pour vérifier, pour faire le suivi?
C'est ça. Il y a un suivi au niveau institutionnel qui est fait par la Fondation Afrique-Europe. Ils ont publié un rapport l'année passée et les partenaires eux-mêmes, c'est-à-dire l'Union africaine et l'Union européenne, ont publié un rapport préliminaire sur les engagements pris en 2022. Ils ont publié ça en mai. On peut partager dans le chat, même si je ne suis pas parvenue à trouver la version en français pour le moment. Imali, merci beaucoup. Alors, so for Jace and Cotonou, you mentioned what entry point for civil society. Indeed, they are agreements that are signed and ratified by countries, by states within the different regions. However, in the new Samoa agreement, which replaces Cotonou, there is an article, and it's legally binding to involve civil society in the partnership. So this is something that the OECD also has been working on to try and set out what would be the principles for good and meaningful engagement of civil society. I'll stop there because I don't want to eat into the rest of the program, but I'll put the email of the platform as well as my personal work email, so you can, by all means, get in touch with me, follow up, let's discuss.
Thank you so much, Jaimie. I'll also say it alone. Thank you, Ferdinand, for staying with us for the first hour. I understand we're releasing you now. So please, should you need the interpretation, get the closed caption on. Thank you. Now, very quickly, before we move to the groups, because this was a lot of information, let's go back to the Mentimeter and tell me, please, how new or how expert are you in everything that concerns AU-EU partnership? Some people already started replying, and I see we have a bit of a balanced spread here. Can be that it's all new information for you and you're coming to contribute, and this institutional framework is somewhat overwhelming. That's fine. We're going to take it slow. Might be that you are just, as Jaimie, able to present it at any given moment, woken up in the middle of the night in multiple languages. Go ahead, situate yourselves high up there in the Mentimeter. We just want to get a feeling of where you are. Make sure you're still with us, still awake, because from now on, my colleague Lara will take you through an exercise where we will invite you all to participate. So I need few more people. I have 16 responses. If you're with us, go back to Mentimeter that you had opened previously. You can go to menti.com and use a code. And I can also try and bring us back to the QR code. That should be possible. Yes, there we are. You can scan this one and just try and submit your answer now. That should make it easier for you to join. And let's see if we're moving on. There are some additional responses. So I'll give you a couple more minutes to do that. Meanwhile, my colleague Lara will be now explaining you what's happening next. And Jaimie, if you could be so kind to pull up in a minute a slide with the group division, that will help.
Oui, bonjour tout le monde. Hello, everyone. We're moving into smaller breakout rooms, discussion groups, and now to be able to give everyone the possibility to share their story, their insights on what's coming ahead. We have prepared some questions for you. And also from the network of the CSEP, there will be facilitators, hosts in every group that know the process, know the timing, and that are there for you. You'll be able to choose yourself which group you'll be heading, and Jaimie is pulling up the slides right now and showing us the different groups that will be there. So voici le slide avec les groupes de discussion. There will be 7 groups. You can choose yourself where you want to go. And every group has a host. We have prepared 3 questions for the first round of discussion. There will be 2 rounds, but for this first round, we have 3 questions for you. The first question is, what is at stake in the AU-EU partnership? What is important? Why are you here? Like, what's at stake? Maybe for your organization locally, maybe you have a more global focus, that's fine as well. But what's at stake? Like, why are you here? Why is this important? That's the first question to exchange about within your discussion group. The second question is, what is problematic or challenging maybe? So from your perspective, what is problematic or challenging with the EU-AU partnership and the summit? What is important to raise as a problematic or challenging issue in the EU-AU summit that is ahead of us? And the third question is, what solutions can we as civil society offer? So those are the 3 questions. Now, I recognize that these are 3 questions we prepared, but in between the discussion groups, there might be a big difference in how many people show up, the group size, and also content-wise, the level of expertise may vary on how deep your discussions on this has already been, if there's a history of having discussed these topics earlier. So take these questions as guidelines, as guidance, but the most important thing is not to have perfect answers, but to have this exchange and to get the discussion going and get to know each other. Am I making myself clear? I'm looking into the chat just to see that Jaimie has reposted the question. You can see the 7 groups where you'll be able to choose from directly, and we're sending you off in discussions for about 20 minutes, and then we'll meet back here in plenary for the next level. Ella, have I forgotten something?
The Mentimeter, you are able to slide through it yourselves, and you will also find on the next slide in Mentimeter those very questions all together on one slide. And on following slide, let me just steal your screen for just a second, Jaimie. You will see all the questions here, and then following slides, you will have space to give, and somebody's already very busy, they're wonderful, based on your discussion, input for each of the specific questions. So I see somebody was already filling it in. Brilliant. Feel free to share it in the language of your choice between English and French for our sake, please.
Okay, Nana, Aksini are technical expert in the room right now to open up the breakout rooms so everyone can choose the discussion group where he or she is heading for the next 20 minutes. And remember, there's a host waiting for you there. Have good discussions.
And I think the biodiversity and climate will remain in this space. I think it's important to highlight.
As well as food systems and agriculture.
Yeah, and food
So
systems, I call that's
food
right.
systems
Okay.
and agriculture, climate and biodiversity stay here with the professional interpreters. The others come join us in the breakout groups. Donc, climat, biodiversité, système alimentaire et agriculture restent ici avec les interprètes.
Please don't be shy. Go ahead and choose your breakout room. We see still quite a lot of you staying here in. Lovely to have you in this group, but I'm sure we have very different expertise in the room and we can have people joining. There is no specific link for the breakout rooms. You can find a little icon on the bottom of your Zoom screen. It looks like a window, and if you click there, you can choose which one you want to join. That's the link. And in the Mentimeter, you will find those questions.
Yes, I can see people slowly finding their way into the space with people, migration, and mobility. There's 5 people already in the breakout room. Economic development, trade, and finance. The English group already has 3 participants. Feel free to join there. Le secteur socio, migration et mobilité. En français, il y a déjà 2 personnes qui attendent pour la discussion. Paix, sécurité, gouvernance, multilatéralisme, il y a aussi déjà 4 participants. Soyez le bienvenu. Same English, youth discussion, there's already 5 people waiting there. Human rights, governance, gender, 6 people waiting there. Most people are still in this room. We're with 30, so we're still giving it a few moments for everyone to find their spot.
And if you have an issue on joining the room yourself because the technology might be not as intuitive, please let us know in the chat. I would like to join the economic development, trade and finance, and we'll drop you there. Or I would like to join the French-speaking Secrétaire Governance Multilateralism, and we will put you in there. So by all means, request our help. We're here to help you. Biodiversity and climate room is here in the plenary, so you can just as well stay here with us and bear with the logistics for a minute. Thank you, Crispin.
Hello, Ella. Could you please, this is Esther, could you please help me to access the questions again? Just I forgot to copy paste before I moved to my room.
Normally there should be in the Mentimeter, so if you're in the Mentimeter, you will see them there. And to get to Menti, I'll put the link here in the chat right away. Thanks for asking. Lara already did. Wonderful. Thank you.
Hello, can our working group start?
Yes, I would say so, Manny. Go ahead.
Or there are still people wanting to maybe seek help in going to the room. Sometimes people have difficulty joining themselves. If you can put your name in the chat, and then the moderators will be able to migrate you to the room that you would like to.
In fact, your name comes up automatically. So you just, if you want to go to a room, a particular breakout room, just put the title of the breakout room or the topic of the breakout room, and we can help you to be switched into that room. Biodiversity and climate stay here.
Okay, I think we can start, Michael. So I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Manny Yap, co-facilitating with Michael Farrelly, the Biodiversity and Climate and the Food Systems Working Group. I work for CSEP, the International Family of Catholic Social Justice Organization in Europe and North America. Michael, your turn to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Michael Farrelly. I'm a program officer with the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, AFSA, and I'm based in our West Africa regional office here in Senegal. Is there somebody able to move Esther into health systems and gender? Do we have someone with that capacity in this space at the moment? And Edward needs to go to human rights.
Will do. Just continue the conversation. I'll make sure that it gets done.
So just as a background to everyone, in the last, in 2022, actually, there was already a joint statement made by African and European civil society organizations towards the partnership. And of course, there was more opportunity for CSO engagement. There was a 1-week period of engagement. But in the lead up recently towards the AU-EU agri-ministerial meeting that took place in June of this year in Rome, there was also that platform that was already somehow established between African and European CSOs, also then updated that joint statement, which results in a document like this, which was shared already to those of you who are part of the CSEP platform. But I guess Michael will also share a link to that document in French and in English, should you have not a copy. And our thoughts in handling this, our session, is that we would want you to review that document or add what you feel is missing. I would not want to repeat it because I would want to give you the voice to speak out. And even if you have not access to it right now, if you just want to share on the issues of biodiversity and climate, or on the issue of food system and agriculture, if there's anything you wish to share, you are most welcome. I will also share to you an English draft of the Biodiversity and Climate Working Group. So just to be clear, there are 2 working groups that are in this space right now. We have combined because there are less people that have engaged to join this meeting. Anyone who would like to provide to respond to the question, what is at stake for you? And what do you see is problematic or challenging in this partnership? And what solutions do you feel you want to offer? While waiting for a hand to be raised, I don't see any hand. I will then just quickly, let's focus first on food systems.
Manny?
Yes?
Sorry, this is Leah speaking. I raised my hand.
Sorry, I did not see you. Yeah.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I am Leah from Wetlands International. And my organization is mainly dealing with the restoration and conservation and sustainable management of wetlands, including mangroves, freshwater ecosystems, and all the biodiversity also linked to it. I think what is in stake, and what I've heard also about the plans for the political declaration of this summit, is that environmental consideration or the environmental points So the environment in general is not a priority. And water, in particular, water ecosystems are unlikely to be included in the political declaration. For us, this poses a great risk because, you know, with the Global Gateway plans, all these investment projects will certainly affect ecosystems like wetlands, because all the big infrastructures projects that might be in the pipeline will certainly impact ecosystems, freshwater ecosystems, so water, the water quality and water quantity in countries where water is already an issue because of droughts or because of floods. And we have experienced in many countries in Africa both, you know, flooding risks and many droughts. So what we are trying to do abroad, because Senegal is will be chairing the UN Water Conference next year. And Senegal is also president of the UN Water Convention in 2027. So what we are hoping is that Senegal could lead the proposition, or at least the push for water ecosystem investment in the management of water ecosystems to fit into the final political declaration. So yeah, this is my comment. So no.
Thanks a lot, Leah. And maybe Leah, if you could also try to put that down in the Mentimeter, so that it can be Lorraine.
Thank you very much. So you didn't quite mention the area that is my focus. So I wasn't sure whether I'm supposed to join this group or the economic development group, but I'll just try and share my thoughts, bringing in the nexus on climate and then, of course, energy. So maybe just correct me, should I continue, or maybe it's not the platform and I should go to economic development?
No. If you want to contribute on the climate and energy, this is also the space. Yes. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great. Thank you. Okay, so in terms of what's at stake, we, as the continent, we have a number of issues that we seek to address, right? We're faced with the climate crisis, the need to transition to clean energy, and of course, we have energy poverty in Africa. So which means that we're at a time where, in as much as we're talking about a transition, for Africa, it's about access. And on access, it's covering a lot of issues, which include the cost of energy. It includes access to clean cooking and various other, ways through people need to access energy effectively. So again, I know there are a number of initiatives the EU-AU summit has been talking about, including just speaking to the Continental Power Systems Master Plan. They've been talk about, green industrialization, which are all initiatives that will support energy access in as much as they are also contributing towards solving the biggest cause of the climate crisis, which is greenhouse gas emissions, and also, of course, the issue around pollution as well, when you talk about clean cooking. So for me, those are the issues at stake. So what needs to be done, what I feel is critical, my concerns are, first, the issues around finance. I know there are multiple platforms that have pushed messaging on how finance should be structured, that it should be debt-free, it shouldn't result in loans, it shouldn't result in a debt burden on African people. So that also includes making sure that, it's grants-based, and also it focuses on different types of finance partnerships that tie together the issue on access to technology, right? We all know we do have some of the materials that are required for the transition, but we do need the technology. So again, that is my concern, that how can we ensure that the partnerships that are built around this time focus on, one, ensuring energy access, whilst we are pushing for a transition and also alleviating one of the biggest challenges around the climate crisis. And then, again, the other aspect around clean energy is the type of energy that we are considering clean. I feel like we haven't I mean, as civil society, I'm sure we have. I mean, I'm with the Global Gas and Oil Network. We have conceptualized what clean energy is, right? But I don't think we share that with our, with governments. I don't believe we have the same interpretation of what clean energy is. And of course, around the issue of when we need to actually stop existing projects, right? But we're saying we do not want new fossil projects that are being supported through these initiatives. And when I say fossil, it also includes gas, right? Because we do consider it as a fossil fuel. So again, on definition of clean energy, that needs clarity on what it is. Again, it joins with the issue of human rights, right? When you say energy is clean, energy is sustainable, it also means it should be able to get down to community level, where communities that are suffering from the energy poverty, who are also again suffering from the climate crisis, right? So multiple threats, climate challenges in terms of droughts, in terms of disasters that are happening, changing of seasons that affect agriculture even. So it's a whole system that we need to tie together. And that needs to connect even at policy level, right? That policy connection that needs to be happening so that all departments, all policies speak to each other so that this policy does not affect the other. So again, we need clarity on what green industrialization is, what it means for communities on the ground, what it means for subsistence farmers, because that energy, again, it feeds into clean cooking, it feeds into livelihoods access, it feeds into a lot of initiatives. So again, if we could gain clarity on that and push it where there's no clarity, push our messaging that this is what we mean by clean energy. This is how we can effectively support clean energy transition and also green industrialization in Africa. So for me, those are just my thoughts or around just transition. I know it's a big topic, so yeah, I'll end here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorraine. And there's a link that I have put where there is a draft positioning and demands that we are now co-creating. It would be good if you add points there as well, and also on, of course, on the Mentimeter. Just to have, because Michael will focus more on the food systems, I'll focus on the biodiversity. Stella, Crispin, and Musa, are you going to be talking about your contributions to the biodiversity and climate?
Yeah, Stella, yeah. Okay, I'm Stella, I'm from Nigeria. So I work with Society for Women and Youth Affairs. I am from Ogoni, where currently there is a cleanup going on in Ogoni, where for 7 decades there have been oil exploitation in the land of Ogoni, and the water of the Ogoni people have been polluted. And not just Ogoni, actually, it's the whole of Niger Delta that has been responsible for funding Nigeria. Though it is the UNEP report of 2011 made it that out of the struggle of Ogoni people, the UNEP report came up, and they started the cleanup exercise for about 7 years now. And Ogoni people have been drinking polluted water that the UNEP report actually stated that it is far 900 times above what the WHO would recommend for anybody in the world. But that is what we have been drinking. So right now with this cleanup, they are now trying to provide water, because in the report it was stated that there was what they call emergency measures, which is a provision of water for the people, and also health registry of the people to be taken into consideration to know if actually the benzene water they've been drinking has caused the cancer and lot of things. But my issue now is that why this is going on, which is the Ogoni case, restoring the Ogoni environment, which includes cleaning and also planting of mangrove, which we are also monitoring. We are monitoring the planting of mangrove, where there have been the pollution has actually cleared a whole lot of mangrove in the mangrove forest of Ogoni. But now with the cleanup, they are now replanting. There is now talk, the government is now talking about re-entry of Ogoni, because for more than 30-something years, during the time of Ken Saro-Wiwa, they actually has stopped oil exploration in Ogoni. But right now, and we know that the push is not just from the government of Nigeria. Obviously, there are companies outside of Nigeria that will be backing the government to come back. So we are talking of Ogoni re-entry. And I don't even know if the policies the EU will be talking about all these, because over the years, when the government have benefits and the region of Niger Delta where the oil comes from, the people are in abject poverty. The people are drinking polluted water. The agriculture, no good yield because of the land is polluted. So how are we talking about re-entry when it's like I don't know, you use the scenario of you open a tap while you're mopping, you're trying to mop and the tap is still flowing. We are just saying Ogoni is like, it's just a test, a test of what the Niger Delta should look like. We have not cleaned the Niger Delta in entirety. We have not even cleaned Ogoni. Well, you're talking about coming back. So I don't know, what would the EU and the rest of the world, because it is companies, the IOCs are the ones that, even though they are the ones that we are on ground are talking about divestment, we know they are actually behind, because like what SPDC did was to actually give money to an indigenous company. So how do you give money to an indigenous company to buy over your assets and you say you're divesting? It obviously does not make sense. So we know that actually companies out there are the ones behind pushing the government. So all this, and when you talk about gas, yes, we also have gas reserve in the Niger Delta that is untapped. And we also know that Nigeria is also making efforts. When you're talking about transitioning and all that, when you listen to their policies, all they are talking about is gas, just like Lauren has earlier mentioned. Do we now consider gas as clean energy? Because when Nigeria is talking about transitioning, it is the gas that is on tap that actually they are looking at. So these are the things that obviously I do not know how to wrap my brain around it, that bothers me, because it's not just Ogoni, the entire Niger Delta have the same issue. How do we go about this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Crispin and Musaka. Crispin first, I think maybe you're talking on the food, then I pass on to Michael.
Voilà. Merci beaucoup merci beaucoup pour la parole. Je crois que vous m'entendez très bien, c'est très bien lisible. Je parlais en français, bien sûr, tout ça, parce que je suis Crespin, je travaille, je suis engagé avec le mouvement des jeunes de militants écologistes en RDC, en République démocratique du Congo. Voilà, et je crois que bientôt là, bien sûr, il y aura un sommet pour la biodiversité en Afrique qui sera tenu à Kigali d'ici en octobre. Je crois que tout les questions liées à la biodiversité, à la conservation, aux problèmes liés aux conservations à la biodiversité en Afrique sera bien traité là-dedans, parce que il en existe plusieurs défis dans la biodiversité, dans la gestion, de conservation des espèces, notamment surtout en Afrique, avec tout ce qui est lié aux problèmes liés aux guerres qui se font dans des aires protégées, dans des parcs, au niveau même de lacs, de mer. Et au-delà de guerres, il y a aussi des braconnages qui favorisent, bien sûr, des braconnages illicites des espèces qui font à ce qu'il y ait des migrations des espèces d'un endroit à l'autre et une extinction massive des espèces beaucoup plus se trouvant dans des parcs. Par exemple, chez nous en RDC, il y a aussi le projet là lié au bloc pétrolier, parce que c'est un projet qui regroupe presque le bassin du Congo. Et le bassin du Congo prend presque 4 à 5 pays, dont la RDC, les Gabon, le Tchad, tout ça, et qui regroupe même des ensembles de bassins de forêts, des réserves, des parcs, des écosystèmes, des lacs, et d'où les Congolais, les gouvernements, des accords se sont mis d'accord pour lancer des projets pétroliers dans ces aires protégées-là. Vous voyez quand même avec tous les risques là liés aux exploitations du pétrole dans ces aires protégées. Il y a aussi les risques de contamination liés aux espèces, la mort des espèces de gorilles, la mort de toutes les espèces les braconnages illicites et de toutes les espèces-là. Voilà. Tout ça sont des enjeux, bien sûr, qui sont, bien sûr, avant liés aux aspects liés à la biodiversité, avec aussi les effets liés au changement climatique, avec des sécheresses, de faits de brousse, d'inondations, accrues, qui favorisent aussi quand même ces endroits-là de parcs, de forêts qui soient beaucoup plus affectés, tout ça. Voilà. Et il faut qu'il y ait aussi, pour le cas des solutions, il faut qu'il y ait des politiques réelles, des politiques sérieuses, réelles mises sur terrain pour limiter quand même de ce braconnage des espèces et cette extinction massive des espèces dans le parc et renforcer quand même ces fonds-là liés au financement, liés à la protection, dans la conservation des espèces toujours. Voilà, merci beaucoup.
Yeah, Michael, take over.
Just to say that I think the other breakout rooms are coming back in any second now. We haven't had any comments or suggestions around food and food systems and agriculture. I don't know what Musaka is planning to speak about, but maybe we'll take instructions from the coordinators of this event as they come back from the breakout rooms.
Yes, thank you, Michael. I'm inviting everyone who hasn't spoken yet but has a point to say to maybe use the Mentimeter to jot down some words that shouldn't be lost, because indeed in a few seconds everyone from the other breakout rooms will be back here, going to welcome them back in. But the Mentimeter is on there, and that's also the place where we make sure that common questions, issues are not forgotten. Okay.
And Manny, can you repost the link to the university thing for the first speaker who was unable to, who dropped out and came back in and lost it?
Okay, everyone, welcome back to our plenary session. We are going to go into a second round of discussions. I hope you've had a nice first round, and we're kind of breaking you up to just invite you to another set of questions. Here again, as before, it might be that you're at a totally good moment in your discussion. You want to pick up that moment once you're out of here. That's fine for me, but our recommendation is from now on to use Mentimeter even more. And can Ella please show the slide? Because this is the place where after this workshop, our crew can go get the information we need to start drafting the joint proposal. And this is also where all the information comes together for the process that is still ahead of us, right? We still have 2 more workshops to go. And we don't want your conversations just to stay conversations. We want your conversations to become a joint statement. So we need those words written down somewhere. And we're not just looking for words, we're really looking for concrete input. So our invitation is to steer your conversations, to steer your discussions a bit in the direction of really searching for concrete stories and examples. Maybe even examples where you have data available, as this is something policymakers always want to hear about. Or another criteria could be stories or examples that are easily scalable also across borders. So not local stories, but that may also be applicable in other countries or other continents. Alors, on est à la recherche d'exemples concrets, des exemples, idéalement aussi avec des données, des data, et qui sont adaptables dans des différentes circonstances. And this is the second round of discussion we want to send you into. So we're welcoming you again in the same discussion groups and for another 20 minutes. If you don't have examples yet, maybe you will come up with some ideas once you're exchanging thoughts with your colleagues. I see Luisa Fondelos from Caritas Europe asking examples of what CSO initiative policies. Yes, for example, but also examples of things that are at stake, examples of things that are problematic and challenging, and not just naming them, but really trying to be pinpointing them into very concrete challenges you are having on the ground. And ideally exemplified with a story, because this is the kind of content we can use to craft the story we want to tell further down the road. So it doesn't have to be an example of a solution. It can also be an example of a challenge, a problem, and so on. But try to be in your discussions more concrete, more examples, more story, share as much like concrete things as you can. Is that clear? And if you were at a totally other point and you still have something else to discuss, do feel free to do that too, because we are not able to be in the 7 groups at the same time. Okay. Everyone, I invite you to go for another round of discussions within the breakout rooms. It's the same 6 breakout room we had before, and the 7 groups staying here in plenary on climate, agriculture, and so on. The groups are filling already. I can...
Michael, maybe you take the first moderation of this session. I'll pass on to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So earlier, in the last breakout session, we looked a lot at the biodiversity and climate side of the discussion. We're here to cover both that topic and food systems and agriculture. So previously we looked at the fossil fuel decarbonization and so on, which is actually a European agenda. Oil and gas pollution of water in the Ogoni people's region of southeastern Nigeria, and we looked again at oil and gas in the Congo Basin. Does anybody want to contribute to this discussion around food systems and agriculture before we jump into solutions and good practice? I earlier posted the kind of a summary of what we came up with in food and agriculture for the in terms of recommendations and a policy brief that went forward to the agriculture ministers meeting. All the agriculture ministers of Europe and Africa came together in Rome, and was it May? So Musa, would you like to open your microphone and contribute to the discussion? Thank you.
Merci beaucoup de m'avoir donné la parole. Concernant l'agriculture, donc moi je suis agriculteur et pasteur et membre de la société civile. On a eu certaines discussions à différentes plateformes. Et toujours, le problème qui revient est que les petits producteurs et les communautés de base sont en général laissés en rade par rapport à l'agroalimentaire, le grand business, mais aussi aux grandes chaînes de distribution. Donc, en même temps, au niveau des pays aussi, en général, les pouvoirs publics ne prennent pas en considération ces petits producteurs ou les communautés de base. Donc, l'enjeu principal aussi ici pour moi est de savoir comment prendre en charge cette situation. C'est la contribution que je voulais apporter. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Moussa. Donc, si j'ai bien compris, les autorités ne prennent pas en charge, en compte les besoins et les concerns des agriculteurs, des paysans, des éleveurs, quand ils préfèrent prioriser le commerce et les agribusiness. Bon, merci pour ça. Do we have any other contributions on food and agriculture, or should we pass to looking at, to go into deeper dive into the questions for the second round, which are around coming up with specific examples of the problems, specific examples of solutions, replicable or scalable policies or practices that could be put forward to the AU summit around these topics of climate, biodiversity, food systems and agriculture. I don't know if, thanks, I see in the chat, Lorraine mentions that the AFSA statement sees inclusive. That was actually just a summary of the key elements of the joint recommendations that went to the Agriculture Ministerial. Stella is coming back in. Please go ahead, Stella. If you can keep it relatively on point, as you've already had quite a long discussion of the topic. So how would you...
you are talking about the food system and agriculture. I just want to say that the parts in the part of Nigeria where I reside or where I come from, obviously the people do subsistence farming, like farming on a very, so obvious, that is the problem that probably makes us to not to have the food sovereignty or food security. Like people just because they don't have, I think, families own land, so it is difficult to do the either mechanized farming or so people, that subsistence farming is like the problem I think we have in this area. So that's just what I wanted to say, because we don't do the mechanized farming.
So if I understand you, you're saying that small-scale farmers don't have enough land to be able to...
No, yeah, we don't have enough land, yeah. So people have just maybe like small portions of land, you know, so you can't really do much. So like, let me say 50 by 50 or 50 by 100, you know, you just have the individuals or families just have small portion of little portion of land. They don't have where you can bring in the tractors, or like it is in the north, where they have hectares of land where people can plant, you know, so obviously that is one problem I know we have in this region.
Yes, thank you. I think we see that elsewhere, that the industrial agriculture promoters prefer to take that land and accumulate large portions of it by bringing that land together, maybe in order to apply their mechanized, industrialized chemical agriculture, rather than to actually provide solutions for people with small scale holdings, with small holdings. So thank you for that, Stella. So more examples of discussion of useful policy interventions, or if useful practices that we could propose to the AU-EU summit, policymakers, decision makers, when they come together in November. They need alternatives. We need to propose some solutions. What can we do to meet the challenges that we've seen? Coming back to your previous discussion about oil and gas pollution of water sources in the Ogoni lands, again, Stella, I think that's a good example of the problem that could be kind of put together as a story. And you could maybe, I don't know if you're able to access the Menti thing, but to kind of put a link to that so that we don't lose that. Shepherd, please open your microphone and go ahead.
All right, thank you. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, one of the things that I maybe more on the side of the communities, but also as they relate to their governments, and then also another additional layer of investors is the issue of land tenure. If communities are, you know, are staying on government, because in most African countries, the land belongs to the governments, to the state, and as long as they do not have their own land which they call theirs, then I'm talking of tenure. Then this means that, you know, investment, even if we want to talk about, you know, climate change, agriculture, climate change adaptation, investment becomes, you know, very low, because they are saying, okay, this is not my piece of land, and how can I do that? And at the same time, if there is an investor who is going to come to support, you know, the small scale farmers, then this also means that there's a whole issue, I think, you know, about, you know, land grabbing by the, you know, foreign investors, and maybe the interest would be to even have commercialize, you know, those pieces of lands. Then it means that if the communities do not have the security, then they are also going to lose, because governments are most likely to have deals with you know, foreign investors, and then the small scale farmer then suffers in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Shepherd. That's issues of insecure land tenure, the threats of land grabbing by external investors, meaning that it's difficult for farmers to protect their land and use it to effectively to adapt to the changing climate. Musa, please go ahead. Please unmute your microphone and go ahead.
Merci beaucoup de m'avoir donné la parole. Je pense que pour parler des solutions, l'accaparement n'est pas seulement des terres, mais des ressources, mais aussi de tous les marchés. C'est ce que j'ai posé allusion dans mon propos tout à l'heure. Donc, je pense qu'au niveau des pays africains, il existe beaucoup d'organisations qui se regroupent au niveau sous-régional et régional. Il va falloir intégrer, faire une synergie des forces par rapport à ces organisations sociales et pousser à une volonté politique qui intègre les petits producteurs des communautés de base au niveau des décisions qui sont prises, que ce soit au niveau des pays, au niveau régional et au niveau de cette coopération entre l'Union africaine et l'Union européenne. Je pense qu'on doit mettre le focus sur ce volet-là et c'est la société civile aujourd'hui qui peut porter ce combat, à mon avis. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Do you have any specific examples of where those synergies between civil society actors, for example, has come together, maybe at regional level, to influence that political will, so as to challenge the resource grabbing that we're seeing increasingly coming from the new geopolitics, the new realpolitik of the European Union's interactions with Africa? We're up to the last 3 minutes. I think we'll be coming back together very shortly for roundup, as I understand it. Ella is nodding her head. So thank you for those contributions. And if you haven't already put them in the Mentimeter, I'll try and add some content to that.
Michael, if there's no one else raising their hands, I would just like to raise an important point on the continued exports of banned pesticides by European countries to Africa, even if these are already. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to stop you here. I'm sorry, because we have just everyone from the breakout room
then.
joined
They're all
back in,
there.
and this is not the breakout room anymore.
Okay,
We are
then.
back in
No
the
problem.
plenary setting. I'm very sorry.
No problem.
Listen, everyone. I know, as usually, this Zoom breakout rooms is an awful thing when you just get kicked out of mid-sentence, and that's what it is. It is not the end of our process. We've seen your contributions in Mentimeter, and thank you so much. There were some general observations on conditionalities that exist to your participation, to youth engagement related to funding. There were some very spot-on concrete observations on the issues with corporate control of the seeds or land grabbing practices, but also more general observations around still pertinent neocolonialism. We are taking it all. We're going to be processing it. We're still open to get more input from you, and we will, in our communication, open a channel for you to give us more input should you wish to, because we have a feeling there might not have been enough time. But for today, we said we're finishing in a minute, and that's what is going to happen. Before I give the voice to Mani to close officially on behalf of the committee, I'd like to remind you that at the end of this, after the workshop, Sine from Global Focus will send you a little survey to evaluate this meeting. And this is very important for you to provide us with this feedback so that we can also report back to our funders in the presidency how this is going. And with this, I appreciate your patience, and Mani, they are yours to close.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you who have taken time to join this first workshop. And as Ella highlighted, this is our first workshop, and there will be more opportunities for you to continue contributing to this process. There will be a second and third, and we hope that you will be with us together. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Interim Steering Committee, plus, of course, our consultants, Ella and Lara.
It's Lara, yes.
Yes, for helping us. And of course, the interpreters, the sign language interpreter, and of course, those that have been interpreting in French and English. Thanks to all. And I think this is a very it is an exercise that is providing us a lot of energy to continue to engage and to really find our way to have a more meaningful engagement with this towards this AU-EU summit. Thanks a lot. And to all the speakers, the keynote speakers, and Jaimie, who did a very good background, and all the facilitators.
Thank you, Manny.
Thank you, everyone. And as we're leaving, Jaimie, if you can pull up on the screen this beautiful slide you prepared with next steps in the process, we can see that. And that's that. It's 4 p.m. here, and with your hour, wherever you are, we are free to leave now. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll leave this slide up. And of course, we'll send it as a part of the follow-up. So everyone will have this information as well. Thank you so much.
Bye. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you, Lara.
Bye.
Thank you, Ella.
Bye, everyone. See you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Merci, au revoir. Merci beaucoup. À la prochaine.
Au revoir, Moussa. Merci.
Merci. Merci.